Hello and welcome to In the Art Scene podcast, a place where creatives share their stories. My name is Galina Marquez, and I have another cool story prepared for you today. So let's get to it. Hello, welcome to the new episode of In the Art Scene podcast. And today I'm having a very interesting guest that I'm super excited about. She goes by the name MD Ferrera, and that will be one of my questions for sure, because her real name is Michelle Lubin. Do I pronounce it correctly?
You got it.
And the art that she is creating is, I don't even know how to describe, the absolutely amazing, passionate, realistic pencil drawings on all kinds of woods. And I know that Michelle is very experimental with that. So I hope we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. But I will probably ask you to introduce yourself properly.
Okay. Like she said, I am Michelle Lubin. I've always gone by MD Ferrera. That's my maiden name, Ferrera. And I've always gone by that just because I've been an artist since before I was married. So, and then once I, did the business cards, the website, I can't change it now.
Well,
so I just stuck with it.
What does MD stand for? Are you a doctor?
God, I wish. No, Michelle, my middle name is Dana. So
okay.
And I'll never, this is a funny story real quick. So growing up, my mom was always like, make sure you put your middle initial. Why, Mom? Why? Because then it's MF, like mother boop. So I was like, oh, okay. So I always made sure I had my middle initial. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mom.
Exactly. So I go by Michelle, but for art purposes, I like to stick with MD Ferrera just because it's consistent and I've been doing it that way since forever, since I've been doing art. And yeah.
And how long have you been doing art?
I have been doing art full-time, professionally, since about 2010, around the time that I moved out to California and taking it very seriously. But I've always done art since I was a kid, always as a side job or something. Yeah.
All right. So you are, relatively fresh Californian, I should say. Yeah. And I feel really lucky that we both live in San Diego, and I got to meet you last year at the San Diego Art Walk. That was really because I've been following you on Instagram for a while, and I remember that moment when you won the scholarship. Was it the Studio Door?
Yes, the Studio Door, the San Diego Visual Arts Network, and Mission Fed Art Walk is all the three components that make up that scholarship.
And it happened right before COVID.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that journey.
I have, it's kind of funny because I applied for it probably 3 or 4 years in a row. So naturally, when I got the acceptance, I ran around freaking out. I was so excited. I was pumped. I already in planning gear. And then COVID hit, and it was a punch in the gut. And I was definitely like, really? Really now? But Patrick, I always emphasize him because he was he's just always so happy, and he was so encouraging and motivating and never allowed me to kind of get too mopey about it. And he's the one who just was like, just stay on course, stay on your goal and what you want to do. So I really attribute a lot of not spiraling down because of his help. And
Patrick is your husband.
Arts Network, the amount of exposure. I mean, it really helped, and it really helped with me mentally. And I know that sounds weird, but like it really is the truth. It's so easy to get knocked off our radar and our goals, and to have people that are constantly lifting you up. And Patrick, I can never say enough about.
And so. Patrick is?
Patrick Stillman of the Studio Door.
Okay.
owner, artist extraordinaire. He's a wealth of knowledge. And like I said, I mean, not only does he bring his knowledge with him and his extensive experience, but really that smile of his makes such a difference. His warm personality really, really did make a difference at a time that I was just like, what's the point of this scholarship now? So yeah, I mean, not only, you know, career wise, but it was having that mentorship, big best part of the scholarship. And obviously doing art walk was a huge bonus because it was my first time ever doing art walk and a personal goal. I just never thought I'd be able to afford it. So to have that on top of the mentorship, the timing of it all really, really made a difference and was an impact on my career and personally.
So in a way, can you say that COVID, the whole pandemic kind of played in your favor because you got a little bit of extended mentorship from Patrick and then you still had your art walk?
Yeah. And it's a weird thing to verbally say. Like I sometimes feel bad saying it, but 2021 was an extremely successful year for me career-wise and financially, probably my best year in the last 5 years. And I say it's just strange to me because I felt like the world is crumbling. Why am I doing okay? And I think part of it is not me. A really part of it is this community. I mean, the amount of encouragement, motivation, the push to think outside the box and how can we do this? How can we rise above this? How can we do something where we're not standing in a gallery inhaling each other's germs? How can we do this where we all succeed? And I think, I mean, that speaks volumes about artists in general. This is why it's freaking awesome being an artist, because that is where we thrive, is when the shit hits the fan, we can think beyond what we're used to. And I think that is our biggest asset. But it does take a village. And, you know, this community, I'll always commend it because I would not be able to do this if it weren't for all the different communities in San Diego that have come together and build each other up.
That is true. Our community in San Diego is insanely awesome.
Yeah. Really, it really is. And it doesn't get enough light about it. And I come from New Jersey, New York area. And, you know, granted, I only dabbled, you know, very early on where I really didn't know much of anything. But it was overwhelming. It was scary. There was not a lot of tangible mentorship or advice at that time. Or at least I didn't know where to find it. But either way, it was, you were a tiny dot in a giant melting pot. So, and then when I came out here, I was trying for LA. So I was constantly racking my brain, trying to figure out how to make a dent in LA. And it wasn't until I met my husband, my now husband, but when I first met him, he was the one that said, you gotta try and check out the San Diego community. The art here is really cool and the people are more approachable. And if it weren't for him, I probably wouldn't have made that step because I was gung-ho on LA. LA, that's where I gotta be. And now I'm like, this is kind of awesome here. And I like working with the people in San Diego. It's just easy on your heart and it makes it easy to create the work that you want to create.
Yeah, that's true. So what brought you to California in the first place?
I'll say it, just life experiences, a lot of shit hitting the fan, but also just making that decision of wanting change and you know, and it took me a while. Like once I made the decision in about late 2008, 2009, it was one of those things that it was like, once I made up my mind, it was, I'm going to do this. And I had two sisters that had already been out here for a couple of years. But it's scary when you make that decision. I had no job to come out to. I had just gotten laid off. I lost a couple of people in my family. My relationship had gone completely kaput. It was just a whole different life. But I'm proud of myself that I didn't run. I sat at my mom's for a year saving up and trying to close shit up and sorry for my language. And just trying to kind of close that chapter. I didn't want to drag that baggage with me. So I definitely did what I had to do. I did the hard labor, the really looking inward, created a ton of artwork, really did a ton of journaling and did the cliche, drove out west in my truck with my best friend in tow, and just everything I owned fit in my truck. And that was it. And had not a clue, but was adamant that this is what I wanted. Even if I didn't know what that meant, I was like, I want to be a full-time artist and I will figure that out one way or another.
And you did.
I still don't know what I'm doing on a daily basis, but I've gained a lot of comfort in the community, like we talked about. And just, I think that's part of the allure about being an artist. I never thought in a million years I'd be able to call myself that, and was very uncomfortable for a long time because I thought I didn't fit what I thought it meant. But I think once I accepted that this is all I could dream of being, and once I met my partner in life, who was like, this is how I know you. I know you as an artist, and that's it. That's all I can imagine. Having that support, that's it, set it off. And from that point on, I was just like, that's all I need, is having a partner that is supportive, the mental space to do and take the creative risks and not know what I'm doing on a daily basis. That really made a difference in pursuing it the way we the way we can.
Is your husband also an artist or not?
He is not. God, that man, he's such a rare breed. He's an engineer, but his heart is an artist. He paints and I love it. Sometimes he's so busy, but somehow he's so, I don't even know how to describe him. He's just so mellow, but he's very creative. He gets it. He just gets it. Like, he understands my need to create, my need for space, mental space. He just gets it. But if he sits with me and I give him a canvas and paint, that man can paint. So he is an artist deep down, but he's a lot of things. And I know I couldn't do what I do without having a partner that gets it. That makes a difference. And I can't deny that. I can't take that out of the equation of being a full-time artist at all.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Yes, you're extremely lucky. I'm super grateful for my husband supporting my art journey as well, which is not as long as yours, but it's been a bumpy road anyway.
It's never, the road of being an artist is not an easy one.
Nope.
It really isn't. But I think, and I do believe having a supportive partner and an encouraging one, that makes a difference. It makes it a little easier to know, to not have to doubt that part, because we have enough doubt as artists. We're constantly doubting ourselves. We're our own worst enemy. And to just know that, okay, that's the one thing I don't have to doubt. I don't have to question that, is like, it's a breath of fresh air. And it does make creating and doing our creative journey a lot easier, having that in the back of our mind without having to question that.
Well, speaking of doubts.
Oh boy.
You are a prolific artist. You came out to me personally. You look absolutely confident in what you do. You create amazing artwork. I have seen it firsthand. So are there demons that you are dealing with on a daily basis?
Oh my God. I could fill, and I do fill journals upon journals of the darkness. And I laugh, and I am naturally a happy person. And, and I also laugh uncomfortably when I am nervous, I laugh. But I think being an artist is a saving grace. And I think that has saved me every single time, because I have definitely done some, self-destructive things. I still do. I'm not going to sit here and pretend. I'm trying to be more honest about it. I don't always talk about it. I put it into art, and I try and let the art speak for itself. But, with when COVID happened, I just felt a little bit of that natural push, seeing my daughter too. And just hearing how many people are struggling, suffering, suicidal, it's hard not to feel that. We're artists, on top of being artists and creators, we feel everything, or at least, I do. I can't speak for everyone, but I know most artists are the same in that sense. We feel everything a little harder, a little deeper, and it's hard not to internalize and personalize that stuff. And I think over the last, few years, I feel a need, an urgent need, and maybe a manic need to talk about it a little bit more. And sometimes I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't be too honest. But actually, who am I kidding? All my life, my friends, even when I was in high school, TMI, Michelle, too much information. But and I think that's why I draw self-portraits nude. I think there's a power in being vulnerable. And if you can, because I get that asked a lot, I get that asked more times than I can count. Why do you draw yourself? And why do my mom, why do you got to be naked? Put some clothes on. But to me, the whole point is the vulnerability and the honesty that you just cannot hide. And I am a firm believer, if we were a little bit more honest with ourselves, then we could be more honest with each other. And then you can have healthy conversations where you get to the root of the demons that haunt us on a daily basis. I mean, we're all haunted by some sort of, inner struggle. And, it's funny because when you do allow yourself to open up, you hear people say, oh my God, finally, I feel so much better. I'm not alone, because we feel alone a lot, because these are things we don't always talk about. So if I could do anything with my art, it's, maybe a little butt cheek or a boob, might open somebody up a little bit more. Maybe it'll, just break down that wall just a little bit more, so we can have an honest conversation. And and I feel like it's good to talk about the hard stuff. It's hard and it sucks, and you cry a lot, but it's a whole lot better than being 6 feet under. And how much have we seen of that in the last few years?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. That vulnerability is something that is hugely missing in the society in general. And there are some things that are taboo that really don't need to be a taboo. And and there are rare people, most of them are artists, who are actually bringing this up on the surface. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the other reason why I talk about journaling so much too, because I feel like that's where it starts. That's where the honesty can start, just because it's a safe, healthy space. And to me, the lines, when you have just a completely blank notebook, nothing on it, it can be overwhelming, that those white pages. But it also, once you get started, it allows you to kind of see your handwriting, see how you feel, a tangible thing you can look and feel yourself. And I think that's a great way to get the conversation, the internal conversation going. And then, it's a process, but once you get started doing that, then it makes it a little easier to say out loud and then to someone else, so it's a process, but I do think, journaling art, it is something that everyone can jump on. I don't think you have to be an artist at all. And people always laugh at me because I'm such a person that says everyone's an artist. And they're like, oh, please, Michelle. And I'm like, but you are. If you can cut out the noise, everyone is a creator, not an art. It doesn't have to be fine art, but you could be like my daughter and just start singing in the middle of the store, which I love. And, like to have that sense of just being who you are in the middle of everywhere, to not have that noise. And as adults, it's just noise that's blocking us from being who we are inside. And whether that's music, dance, when I say art, I mean the arts in general, and it's the noise that blocks us. And I do believe if you can calm the noise, if you can, find a way to mellow it out, then everyone is a creator. And those are the things that do help us to be mentally and physically on this planet, grounded, healthy, working together, because we have to. If we don't, look what's happening. The world is a crazy place. Some of it we can control, some of it we can't, but the parts we can, we have to own our mistakes and find that way to get over that bridge.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. And journaling, I found that it might be not easy for everyone to even start, because we all have our, well, first of all, it's not easy to have an honest conversation with yourself for many of us. And I just got back to journaling myself about 3 months ago ish, 3, 4, whatever. And I found it, I used to journal since high school through my 20s. And I had a couple of incidents when someone in my family was not discreet enough and found it and, read it and then and kind of, quote some things back to me. And that was traumatic. So I stopped doing it and I just returned to it, and it was quite scary.
Oh, it can be. It totally can be. I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah. Well, like you say, shit happens. It hits the fan.
That's funny that you say that, because I just got into I'll say discussion about that. And I'm not going to say who, but someone was proceeding to tell me that you have to read your kids' journal. And I was like, oh, hell no. And I already with my daughter, I'm very protective of that. And I feel like I see how journaling has saved me my whole life. And I know how much my father respected that. And I will never do that to my daughter. And it's funny because when I want to show someone her art and kind of show them her sketchbooks, I always ask, I'm like, can I show this and I tell her who it is. And sometimes she says no. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I will respect that. And she's already started journaling and has a couple sketchbooks in her bedroom. And
she's 6.
She is 6, because I've started that with her, because I always tell her, I make sure I tell her, because she does understand it. They've grown up a lot in the last 2 years. And, and I always tell her, if you can't tell me, talk to daddy. If you can't talk to daddy, your teacher. If you can't talk to anybody and you're confused, your journal, you could draw, you could do whatever, stick anything in there. I've seen her when she has bad dreams. Sometimes I tell her, do you want to talk about it? No, mommy. Do you want to draw it? Sometimes she does. And when she draws it, I see how much better she feels when she's done. And I always ask her, do you want to throw it out or keep it? And, we just kind of take it as it comes. But to give her that, again, I just feel like it's so important to have that. For me, most of my life, until I finally got a therapist, which was only a few years, 2-3 years ago, I wish I had one way sooner, but I will say that my journal was that silent therapist.
And it's true. I've been in the therapy myself for like on and off for the last 10 years, let's say. And now that I don't have a therapist anymore, journaling is an extension of that process, actually, because I have enough tools, and there's so many things. Like when you get rid of the noise that just kind of, that mental vomiting, like after 1.5 page, something very important starts coming out, and I was like, oh, that's what it has been all the time, and it's been sitting and bothering me, and I had no idea. And all of a sudden, it starts making sense, and there are some memories that I completely forgotten coming back, and it's amazing. It is a really great experience,
and it's really it's a full circle experience, and I hope more people allow themselves the opportunity to do that. And unfortunately, I've met a lot of people that, frown upon therapy or think like, oh, what's wrong with you? And it's like, well, actually, everybody should have a therapist. Nobody's perfect.
Yep.
And what's bad about being able to talk to someone who can, kind of get you out of or separate you from your thoughts so you can look at them, as a third person and solve the issues yourself, because that's all they're really doing. They are the journal, because everything it's really internal work. And that's all, to me, that's what art is. It's the internal work just coming out. And, with my art, I would say it's, what people see is a finished product. And I do like posting the videos and the time lapses because I feel like over the last, again, since COVID, I'm trying to change my wording on my artist statements and all that stuff, because I'm like, wait, I've been saying it all wrong. Like it's, for me, the art that I do is really about the process. Because if you look closely at my anatomy, it's not perfect. I mean, there's a lot of anatomical incorrection. There's a lot of things that are anatomically incorrect, but and sometimes it bothers me and I'm like, I wish I could fix it, but it's already sealed. But again, I try and back up and say, remember, what was it about? Is it about the finished product? No, it was about the process. It was that agonizing, cathartic release where you're like, the grains are pissing me off, but I need to get this thing, and it's kind of manic, but it's, it's that feeling of when you're done after a couple sessions or even like an hour long of drawing that you're like, whew, okay, I feel better. Like I could breathe a little better. And so that's where I'm trying to kind of reword the things that I have written about my art is, wait a second, it's more about the process. So let me clear that up.
Well, that's a great segue. Let's talk a little bit about your art. So I know that you keep your art in journals, in sketchbooks, but you also work on wood, which is very interesting and unusual because you use graphite and, if I am not mistaken, sometimes like colored pans. They are very, very passionate nudes. My personal favorites are when you have that interesting focus, like the palm of your head is very, very in the front, and then the whole body is kind of in the background. So it creates that very unusual perspective. Well, first of all, I didn't realize they were self-portraits. Do you work from the references? Do you take photographs of yourself? And then another thing is that how did you come up with this idea of drawing with pencil on the grain of wood? Because a lot of your work, like I would say majority of your work is on wood.
Yeah. Okay. What was the first question? I'll start with the wood. The wood was an accident. I mean, I was, your typical cliched 20-year-old living in a dungeon apartment where, broke. And this was back east. And, I ran out of paper and I was going through I was down in it. I've gone through so many bouts of depression, and I was probably at another low point at that time. Broke, couldn't find paper, and went into the garage that I was staying at, and there were a stack of wood, and all different sizes, just crap wood. And I just grabbed it. I was like, I just need to create. And at the time, it was like collage, so I was just piling stuff up on. I cutting stuff out, coloring with crayon. I had no idea what I was doing. I just needed that creative release. And it wasn't until some friends were like, you got something kind of going on here. And I was like, I don't care. I just need to draw or something. And, and it just kind of spiraled. And then once I kind of came out of that spiral and took a step back, I was like, oh, wait, I think I am onto something. And the wood, I really enjoyed it. And mostly because everything works on it. And I really like the fact that canvas is so delicate. To me, it's delicate. I'm rough, I'm clumsy. So I'm constantly freaked out with canvas. Like when somebody gifts me a canvas, I'm like, I don't want to break it or rip it. So I like the toughness of the wood. It also has it hits home because, I grew up always, my dad's like tomboy son, helping him in the garage a lot. He was blind. He was an artist and a builder. And, it was always, Michelle, what is this green or purple? No, Dad, you're way off. It's blue. so, always helping him and always helping him build. So that wood smell just, it makes me feel home, and it makes me feel like myself. It's just full circle for me. And then once I started drawing on it, which was sort of accidental in itself, I was blown away by how easily the pencil, just the wood absorbed the pencil, the oil of it, and shading it with my fingers, and just that whole tangible body, a full body experience. I love that. That to me, I can't get away from that. And working in the journals, as much as I love it, after a while, I feel like I need to spread my wings and my body. I need to feel it all. So for me, it's that full body thing. And then I think your question was about the self-portraits. A lot of it, again, goes back to the whole journaling thing. So, who do you know better than yourself? And it's also this kind of thing of just journaling out loud. And for a while, I called it that, journaling out loud, where when I can't get my words right, which happens a lot, and I stumble because I get either too excited, too emotional, and I just can't get my words right. So I draw myself and how I'm feeling or thinking. And a lot of times, because it's spontaneous. So I'll just take a picture of my body, my gesture, and how I'm physically feeling. And I don't care what the picture looked. They're pretty crappy photos half the time. It's just a point of reference. But, I stretch it, pull it, make the perspectives and the angles a little more exaggerated, because I want that feeling that pulls you in. And I want to feel that when I'm drawing, and I want to, so when I'm sitting down working on a piece, and usually I have a couple pieces going at once, it's very easy to go right back into that mode or right back into that emotion. And that's important for me to create in that same emotion. So, and then, like I said, once I'm done, it's a breath and I can breathe. It's that whole full circle feeling. But yeah, I take pictures of I use myself as a reference, and I try to not always use my face, but that last series, I used it a lot, and mostly because it was a manic phase. The Just Breathe series that was at Art Walk, that I had at the studio door for the scholarship. That series, I'm still I still, sometimes I'm like, am I done with this? I've moved on to a new series called Mother. But it's very similar in the sense that it's music, inspired. And, and it's just, sometimes you can't not have the face, because the face is really animated, and our faces say a lot. You look at people's eyes, their cheekbones, their mouth, the shape, you can tell how people are feeling, really easily. So that's why I guess I added more faces in that last series.
Let's take a short coffee break. Are you enjoying this episode? If you do, would you buy me a coffee? I would really appreciate it. The link is in the show notes and on our website, intheartscene.com. Thank you for your support. It's very interesting what you were saying about journaling out loud and using your own body. Kind of speaks to me specifically in this moment. And to clarify, at the moment of the recording of this episode, I'm on 9th month of my pregnancy. So when you guys are listening to this, I have a baby hanging on my tooth right now. Because we will be on air sometime in like July or early August. But at the moment, I still have a few weeks to go. And I found myself, especially toward the 3rd trimester, being obsessed with my body. Literally. And that's like, it is speaking something to me personally, because I've never been interested in self-portraits. I always thought that this probably will be the last thing I will ever draw. I would, and I do portraits, and I do other people and some imaginary portraits. And but about myself, I was like, kind of, this is the most boring subject that probably can exist. And in the last 2-3 months, I've been literally obsessed with it, to the point that I have done a belly cast.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this project. I have no idea what that's going to be, but yeah, it's going to be something. I started drawing, I started taking hideous selfies of my pregnant body, started drawing stuff. I'm not showing a lot of it, but because I literally have no idea what I'm doing.
But you're good. And you don't, whether you show somebody or not, but to do that and to recognize that appreciation that you're having is brilliant and beautiful.
So yeah, and my point is that you're right. There's something about that expression that is in your body that speaks volume about who you are and your values, and there's just something. All of a sudden I stopped being a boring subject for myself.
You should know how insanely incredible that is. You're growing a human inside your body, and your body is changing in the most unreal ways. I mean, I do remember that like it was yesterday. It's crazy that she's 6, but I remember that every step of the way, just being like, oh my God, look what's happening today.
Exactly.
That's so cool. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah, it's been the strangest thing that had happened probably. And I'm extremely lucky with this pregnancy. It's so easy. And yeah, it's just an amazing experience. But I have never thought that it will change my mental state so much, and that I would have so much interest in, like, because, especially when you are like in your 20s and you're really obsessed about how you look and how people are judging you, and you're trying to do your hair and your nails, and it's like, oh, okay, well, there's a little bit of a bump on my ass, and I need to do a little more sit-ups, that kind of stuff. Now it's like, oh my God, it's growing, it's huge, I love it. It's all kind of, it's all over the place, and I love it.
I
Yeah.
think that I believe that. I believe, being an artist and being able to look at yourself like that is a full circle experience. And I think it gives you so much appreciation to, I think about how many women struggle with their bodies changing. And it's not to say I don't struggle with how I look, especially since there's a lot of jiggly parts these days. But, like I tell my daughter, it's not about what you look like. It's about how you feel on the inside. And if you feel good, flaunt it, and if you're healthy, even more of a reason to flaunt it. And you're growing a human. That is, it's incredible. And especially if it's been a healthy pregnancy, oh, hell yeah, celebrate that.
Well, thank you.
Yes. But it's a difficult thing. And, and we're so used to, I don't know, being so hard on ourselves. And, to hear you say that makes me smile, because I feel like, yes, yes, more just people celebrating the changes. Like, we're not supposed to stay the same. And, to see your body change is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And, to be an artist on top of that it gives you the capacity to do so much with it, and to really, really see it more deep and more, it just on a whole different level. So, hey, yeah, kudos, and keep going, and keep recording those moments. Even if you don't share them, keep recording them for yourself.
I wonder what kind of experience I'm gonna have, like, I don't know, 20 years from now, when I find all of those recordings and like, what it was like.
It'll be fun.
I'm sure it will be. Well, since we are on this subject, I know your daughter is extremely involved in the art that you're doing, and I've seen you doing murals together now. So tell me a little bit about that. I mean, she's obviously a child of two very creative parents.
Yeah.
And having a mom, a full-time artist, prolific full-time artist, and so, so open and celebratory of self-expression. How early did you start involving her, or I don't know, how early did you start noticing that she is expressing this interest in, and what's that journey creating art with your child is like?
It's I wasn't ever trying to do anything with her. It wasn't a conscious effort. Part of it was just after she was born, I thought, all these things about, I should rest while she's napping. And sometimes, and you just ride the wave. Motherhood is definitely, my only advice is FUCK advice. Do what you feel, do what you're on your own time. Just motherhood is just personal. And for me, it was like, I just did art while she was on me sometimes. And I felt just cozy to draw with her. And I never made a conscious effort. And it really wasn't until my mother-in-law noticed, my daughter would grab my pencils because I would leave them all over the place. And my mother-in-law was like, at 9 months old, she was like, that's not normal. She was like, that's pretty impressive the way she's holding the pencil at 9 months old. And I was like, huh? And, I really did not read a whole lot about pregnancy and motherhood, because I'm already a very easily overwhelmed person. So I was like, I can't have this extra noise. I need to just do what I feel. And and I just did what I was doing in my career. And it just so happened that I had a baby along the way. And again, this art community is ridiculously supportive and receptive. I mean, I don't know if you know Camellia, who was having art shows around the same time, or curating art shows around the time that my daughter was a baby. And she was like, bring her, bring her. So it was like, all right, well, then I'm bringing my baby to the art show. So it was like, it makes a difference to have that support and encouragement so that it's not an effort. It just kind of happens that way. And, with my daughter, I've always said to her she's pretty receptive, and she's, her gross, whatever it's called, fine motor, gross motor. I mean, she was a little late walker, but as far as fine motor, I guess, with the hands and holding pencils and markers, talking, singing, that kind of stuff, she was pretty early on. And I only know that now. In the moment, I had no friggin' clue. I was like, what? Huh? Just kind of going with it. And, I try and make an effort, if anything, to tell her, I don't care if you never do art. I just want you to know that it's there and it's an outlet. And we do talk about, we're big talkers in this house, as you can tell. And, we just talk about our feelings a lot. And I just don't want her to struggle in that regard. So it's a lot of, if you can't talk to me, art it out. But I am fortunate. She's taken to it. And, we've always done, she's pretty hyper like me. So she's very, very active. So if we're not hiking or running or playing, what I love is when we have our quiet arting time. She loves chill hop. So I'll put chill hop on and we'll just art quiet. Half the time I'm not arting, I'm watching her, and I'm just like, this is crazy. Like, I never, you just don't know what you're going to get. And, and I like that about her. Like, I like watching her take to it on her own without my influence. And I know a lot of people assume like, oh, you must teach her a lot. Oh, I can't teach this girl beans. She is very confident and she knows who she is. I literally just provide the resources, and that, I think is important. To just provide those resources to kids, whether they use them or not, fine, but to give them that space and that those healthy outlets is crucial to their development. And that's all I could want to make sure she has at her fingertips.
Have you noticed that if she has a preferences to certain mediums?
She is direct with her markers. She loves Sharpie markers, and she'll just like, no thinking about it. You give her a piece of paper, she'll just start drawing right away. And she's different. She's not like me. I look at her and I'm like, you're very much like Grandpa Richard, like my dad. You have a piece of paper, you know exactly what to do with it. Me, I usually will draw what's in front of me, or, a reference of some sort. She's just like, just go, mommy, just color. And she's really inspired using a little bit more color. I still get nervous using color because it's not my go-to, but she's poked and probed that challenge in me. And I like that, because it's, kids, man, they will light a fire under your ass in some sort of way. And if it's not, for one thing, it's another. But I like that. And it keeps it fresh. It keeps me alive. It keeps me out of my darkness, and that, again, is a saving grace. And because motherhood, being an artist, that's challenging in itself, but there's a power to it too. And I think, and you'll figure it out. You'll figure out your own groove. Everybody's different, but, I think it's fun. It's fun to watch Ava, and it's part of the process. It's hard to separate the two. They just kind of no matter what, it's going to intertwine. Like, I've had a mentor, a female mentor, an older one. And she asked me a while back, or like maybe a year or two ago, she was like, there's too much of your daughter on your feed. You need to make the decision. Do you want this as your art page or your mother page? I was so offended. It took me weeks to get over that. And then I was like, she wasn't being mean. Maybe she has a point. But then I was like, wait, no, oh hell no. How do you separate the two? It's part of it. And, and it wasn't something bad. She said it was good food for thought. And it helped me determine what is it that I'm trying to do. So if I take away the negative aspect, which it wasn't negative, it was just something to think about. But I know now I can't separate it. It's a part of it. How do I make it work? Still figuring that out. But I know I can't separate the two.
Well, it was a trigger for you yeah, definitely when someone hits the trigger, it's always a food for thought. Whew. Yeah. If you I'm furiously disagree with that, that means that it goes against your authentic self. And it's like, yeah, now I just have to figure that out. But that's actually really, I would say maybe not very nice, but very good mentorship.
Yeah, exactly. And, and it was my husband who kind of pointed that out. And he was like, wait, whoa. Was it really anything that bad that she said? And I was like, I guess not. And he was like, take it for that mentorship, take it for what it can be as advice, and or how to navigate that into what you're trying to do, what your goal is. So I was like, okay, all right, I got it. And I'm still working on that, but I definitely can't. I realize now I can't separate the two. It's impossible.
Well, and you are doing a good job combining the two. It's as far as I can see on Instagram right now. Yeah, she's being a very active participant in everything you're doing. But there was actually another question that I wanted to ask you, if that's okay, because I know that it's a little bit of a emotional topic for you. But you touched on that the first time we met at the art walk, and you said that your father was a very huge influence for you. And earlier in this conversation, you mentioned that he was an artist, but he was blind, and he was a woodworker. And so it's obvious that you had very, very special relationships, let alone the artistic influence, but there was something about that kind of stuck with you as a person and defines you in a way. So if you can, please talk a little bit about that.
Sure. I'm happy to. And it my father passed when I was 15, and but I had 15 it's just incredible years of a really deep relationship, and on a level that I miss now, because he understood me in a way that not a lot of people do, and without being said, which and I'm just figuring this out now at 40 years old, so it's been eons, but I'm like, oh my God, that's what it was. It was that. And we would sometimes I'd be in the garage helping him, but it would be silent. There was nothing really being said, but I felt so damn understood, more so by him than in being in a room with all my sister's cousins, 35, 50 people in one room. But I could be in a room with him silent, and it was so effective and true. And that, I think, is what made him such an incredible father. And I'm one of 4 girls. And I think another incredible trait of his was his ability to be 4 different dads, basically. And I think that's a brilliant, and I don't know how in the hell you do that with 4 crazy daughters, create different relationships where, there is no right or wrong. It's that this is what she needs. That's what she needs. That's what she needs. And with me, it was, I was so intrigued by his incredible creative abilities to just build a side table, then go paint a portrait, and then go do, come to my field hockey games where he couldn't even see the damn ball. So it was, he had that really incredible ability, but he did show me a lot creatively. And again, never taught me hands-on, it wasn't like, here's today's lesson. It was not a lot of talking. It was really a lot of times me just watching him, kind of like with my daughter. Like I wind up starting something, but then I just phase off and I'm just watching like, wow, this is fun to watch. It's because it's fun to watch silently, as you can almost see the wheels churning in their brain as they create. And that is, it's to me, I love that because I feel like I'm watching the process. And yeah, my dad was, he was traditionally trained. So a lot of Renaissance era. And I think that's where I gained a lot of my love for the figure. But the wood is all him, that building and being able to move my body in the garage. That's a big part of, he also was a ninja. He studied ninjutsu because of his eyes. And, so there was always that physical sense too. And he had the ability to keep up with me and my sisters. And, so there's a lot of him that I do have always admired, but now being a parent, I more in tune to some of those things that he didn't teach me outright, the things that I can feel now, which is weird because it's been, 20 plus years. But, yeah, he influenced me in ways that I'm just realizing now, which is pretty mind blowing. And, and my husband talks about this word legacy a lot. And, I'm still figuring out what the hell that means, especially now being a parent. It's like, what's our legacy to our kids? What are we leaving to our children? And, and I think what my father gave me is that curiosity. And I see that with my daughter and I love it. I love to see that progression from one generation to the next. It's cool to see the creative side, the art side. But what I love is the curiosity and the lust for wanting more and wanting to learn more creatively in life, whatever. So yeah.
Wow, that's a really inspiring story. And well, first of all, I'm sorry that you lost him so early. But I think that in those 15 years, he probably gave you all that. Like that's his legacy. That defines your entire life now.
Yeah, and I tell my daughter, I'm like, look, we talk about Grandpa Richard all the time. It was awesome while we were painting her. Well, she was painting her mural on the utility box. Both days in a row, we saw a monarch butterfly, and we came up with this thing a few years ago. That's Grandpa Richard. So I'm like, hey, he's following us. He's watching us. And it's hard to get sad at this point. Like sometimes I get a little bummed out, but for the most part, in perspective, I know how many people had not so great relationships with their dads. And I feel really, really, really fortunate to have had those few years with him on that kind of a level. I know that that's hard to come by, and I recognize that full well. So that's why it is, I don't get too sad. If anything, it perks me up. And I love talking about him because I'm like, that's his legacy. He only dies if I stop talking about him. People only die when you stop. The way to keep their memory and their legacy alive is to keep them within your daily practice and your daily conversations. That keeps people alive.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. I really, really appreciate that. Seriously, because it's a heartwarming because, as you said, it is quite rare, especially for women having, such special relationships with their fathers and carrying that sweet memory. And like you're carrying him in your heart. And I'm pretty sure that, yeah, all those monarch butterflies that are showing up for you, it's your dad.
Yeah. And it is that full circle feeling that I talk about so much, but, as we get older, there's some importance to that full circle and to see my daughter, take to creativity, whether it's she's singing, dancing or painting or drawing, and the fact that she will point that out and say, oh, there's Grandpa Richard, he's following us, like that to me is like, I'm done. Job is done. And it's that thing that, to see that she's in tune with that already and aware of things that are not in front of her face or tangible, but it's a feeling. It makes me happy as a parent to know that she can feel and is in touch with her feelings already. And now it's just a matter of, okay, let's help her harness it, because it's going to get mucky, these next few years. I'm well aware of that. Coming from a family of all women, I'm well aware I'm in over my head, but to see that she's already in tune with her emotions, I think we got a good base. And, I want to be a part of that. And I think art is an easy way to keep us connected. And it's a big part of it. So our relationship, for sure.
It's beautiful. All right. Well, we've been talking for a full hour now.
I had 2 cups of coffee this morning. Maybe that was the problem. Sorry.
Now, it's actually very interesting because I keep thinking about that. Now every single episode is about 1 hour, because I've been trying at the very beginning to keep it like under 30, maybe 40 minutes. But what I found is that it's just impossible. Like even 1 hour, it's a glimpse into another artist's world. It's just it's a brief glance and it's the time is gone. I could have done it for 2-3 hours with every single guest I have.
You know what, too, though, I think is a big part of that, because I've done a few of these kind of things in the last a year and a half. And I think a lot of it, too, is because we're so, as artists, even without the pandemic, we're so used to working by ourselves. And it's on top of the pandemic. And then when we get to talk to a fellow artist and have this kind of intimate space to talk, honestly, it's like, ooh, people, yay. Like, I'm so by myself a lot, which I love. But it is it's like a surge of adrenaline to talk.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
it totally is. And it actually was one of the reasons why I started this podcast, because I switched to full-time art in 2019, like toward the end of the year. And I had a lot of hesitations and a lot of guilt about leaving my corporate job and all of that. And then the pandemic hit and I was like, oh, okay, so I don't have to worry about going to the interviews. I can build a studio in the garage. And 2020 was like blissful year of just doing whatever the heck I want, chasing that fantasy of being artist and creating every single day. But by the end of the year, I was like, I'm isolated. I need to talk to other people. And I have no idea. I don't know anyone in the art community because I just started. And so, I just started reaching out to people, and that's how the podcast came about. It's been an amazing journey. My way of like chipping out the blocks on my way into the art community, if you will, and I'm just blessed.
But that's Absolutely. So cool to hear your story and to hear how you started this. That takes cojones. I'm like trying to say it in a clean way, but that is not easy, girl. Damn. Give yourself a lot of credit. And you did it during the pandemic?
I am so blessed. Seriously, that's the best thing that happened to me during the pandemic. Honestly.
What a way to get started, girl. That is something to be supremely proud of.
I'm grateful, not as proud, because it wasn't a project, but I'm grateful because I have a chance to, reach out to people like you and have this incredible, inspiring, a very emotional conversation for the whole hour. And we met just once, right? I was like, hey, Michelle, how are you doing? Do you want to be on my podcast? Like, sure, let's do that. That's amazing. That's the best thing.
But you're warm and welcoming, and that makes it easy. All that being able to approach each other is, I think we take it for granted how easy it is to talk to one another. But, again, coming from different areas, it's not this easy all the time to open up. And that goes a long way. And yeah, I hope you gain that sense of pride, because that is something that you should take ownership of. I mean, that is not an easy thing to what you've done. And to start your career by reaching out to other artists. I mean, I know a lot of artists that have a hard time, approaching other artists.
Oh, trust me, it was hell. I was so
you're
scared.
Doing it. You're doing it. You've done it, and you're doing it. And that is awesome. And you're helping to elevate other artists and give us an extra platform. Like, that's freaking awesome.
Well, thanks for saying that. Although it's not about me. Anyway, I'm honestly, I feel blessed in a way that not only I have an access to someone else's creative heart, but then I have this opportunity to share it with other creatives, because the heck, we all feel isolated sometimes, right? And hearing someone else's story, and trust me, every story is so unique, but in every single one of them, you can find something that relates to you personally. Like, yes, this is about me. Like, it's a totally different story from another world, but it is about me somehow. Somehow there's someone on the other side of this planet that is experiencing exactly what I do.
And you're connecting us, and you should give yourself a lot of credit for that. And also the fact that when we get off, I feel I'm ready. Now I'm ready to work, and I'm in here already. I'm pumped. I feel good about our conversation, and that goes a long way, because it's very easy to get off our kilter and talk ourselves out of creating sometimes. And to have that little nudge this morning is pretty nice.
Yeah, well, heck yeah, I'm going to my studio after this.
Yes. Let's create.
Yay. All right. Thank you so much for your time. I so appreciate that. It was an amazing conversation. One of those really uplifting ones that I have very often on this podcast. And I every single time say it was my favorite, but it is true. All of them are my favorite. And I am extremely lucky and grateful to have been able to meet you and make a connection with you. And thank you for opening up so vulnerably and widely.
Well, thank you for making it a safe space. Thank you for asking me to do this. I appreciate that more than you know. And this was awesome.
Well, then we'll stay connected in the art scene.
Easy, definitely, without a doubt.
All right.
And wish you luck next 3 weeks. Call me if you need anything.
I will. It has been another episode of In the Art Scene podcast. If you liked today's conversation, please give us a good review on Apple and go listen to other great stories. Check out our website intheartscene.com or follow us on Instagram at intheartscene for more content. If you are a creative and you want to share your story, shoot us a message from the website or DM us on Instagram. Look forward to seeing you next time in the art scene.